Thank you so much for tuning in this morning. This is your Un-Bougie Foodie. Welcome, as always, every weekend that is, we start off with talking about food. Again, good morning, foodies. Let me first start off by welcoming a guest host that I have with me, Aaron Gabriel. Aaron, if you would say hello.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Thanks again for being here. I appreciate that.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me. This is really fun.
No, awesome. We are going to be talking, as always, about food. But Aaron is here because he loves food, like we all do. But he has a broader perspective of food. He's a international traveler. I'm sorry, I'm bigging you up a whole lot.
That's all right.
Okay, good. But he has traveled to a number of different countries, and I want to get an opportunity for him to express his feelings basically on and thoughts and opinions on the different types of foods that of the countries that he's gone to. So first off, Aaron, if you would tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what you do and your food interests and so forth.
Yeah, thanks. That's really flattering. I feel like a superstar. I do love to travel, and I think part of traveling, I travel a lot for my work. I'm a composer, and I do theater work that's community driven. So you go into a community and you identify an issue or topic that community really wants to discuss, and work together on creating a sort of public presentation involving that topic. So when you go and you travel to these different countries and do this work, one of the things that really connects people, other than music and dance and things like that, those are other languages that we can use and
certainly definitely
connect people. But one of the basic ones has been my love of food and my interest in food. So not just saying, oh, this tastes good, but say, how is it made? And then, of course, as you know, I like to take cooking classes while I'm there from people. And I found that really connects me with them in a great way. And it's, since we all have to eat and drink, is that me? Since we all have to eat and to live, I think it's something that you can find commonalities in with people, and they can really connect you with other people, and that's been really, really important to me, and it's been really fun. It makes things, and you often will times, if you're interested, then they'll lead you down the roads of other things.
Exactly.
So sometimes people assume because you're Western or American that you only like a certain kind of food, and there's some people who do, just like they're very limited. And so if you start to inquire, then you start to get into the more interesting foods, and you can find things that you really, really love, right, and unfortunately can't make. But
no, I understand. I think I could certainly relate. I mean, I haven't traveled very much like that as well. I mean, at all internationally like that, but seeing or being in a culture, I'll say, for example, the Hmong community. I live among a number of Hmong individuals, as well as working with some, but then also Hispanic as well. It excites me when they see that I'm excited about, in their interest, my interest in their food or in their culture and so forth. So, your thoughts when you were saying that certain ones will lead you down a path of, you start here and then all of a sudden you're going down this path of all these different types of interesting and even exotic foods and so forth. And it's like, this is getting too much, but it's a whole lot of fun.
It is, and you have to take, I probably take way more risks than my counterparts. I like to be adventurous with food, and I think there's a lot of things I've had that other people just wouldn't even try.
Right.
But I think that that's part of the fun of it. And just cross your fingers.
But that's the interesting part too, because we talk about, I know you and I, as well as our other friends, that when I come over to your house to enjoy your cooking and we get together and do things. When we talk about the different types of foods and everything, I don't know how you feel about talking with it about all your other friends about all the different varieties that you've had and so forth. I'm excited about that because I know friends, they don't like lingua, they don't like this, or so, but those are things that I'm like, okay, I'm used to that, I'm willing to try that. What is that? That looks kind of scary, but I'm going to try it. That's how I am.
I think it's so important to try. I think you have to try with an open mind too, because I think a lot of us, food is a visceral experience, right? Like there's all these things. There's smell, there's color, there's texture.
Yes.
There's just the visual aspects of food, and some things, as we know, that look really gross to our eyes tend to be really yummy. Yes. And sometimes things that look really pretty can be absolutely flavorless, as we've all discovered when we've been like, oh, that looks so great, and then you're eating it and you're like, I don't understand why these flavors don't work together. And flavors are so complex too. There's so many when you start to look into it, and it can become very overwhelming. I think that's why some people maybe sometimes want to stick to the certain types of foods that they're used to because they know that they like them, or their palate's adjusted to that. Exactly. But I'm a person who's like, I'm going to totally be open-minded on this. Whenever I go to a restaurant that I tend to frequent, I always try something new. I always order something new just to see if I like it, because I've been really surprised in the past, and now I wouldn't know what my life would look like without those foods in it.
Without trying those different things.
So,
right.
I think that's part of the fun of food for me, and that's why it can be like you could be having a bad day and you just go have a food adventure.
Right.
And Minneapolis and St. Paul are just like, it's insane.
Wide open door.
And I can't believe how many restaurants are continually successful, even like after the recession in 2000. This city loves food, and they love a variety of food. They love the cultures that have brought different foods into the city, and that started in the 40s even.
And I know I've talked about this in the past, but there are so many different chefs as well as celebrity artists and chefs and so forth that will come here looking for the newest food.
It's
the
really becoming that way, isn't it?
It really is. And even especially like for St. Paul, a good example out in, I'm just going to say, City Pages as well as Eater and a few other places. They've mentioned that there are about 17 new restaurants that are going to be appearing in St. Paul. St. Paul alone. That's not, like spreading out, but 17 new restaurants. So, hopefully I will get a chance to go out there and experience them. Hopefully you will come along with me.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Yeah, and I'll be able to talk about them. But, with so many different restaurants, you would think, okay, well, people get tired of going, I don't want to go. No, people want to go out. Even if it may not be on a nightly basis, but a special occasion, or maybe once a week, where they want to enjoy some variety of food that maybe is different, like what we were talking about. Hey, I'm going to try something new. Or maybe I heard it on this radio station, the Un-Bougie Foodie.
Do I need to say that over and over while I'm on the show?
No.
Hashtag Un-Bougie Foodie.
No. But, it will at least draw them out and say, okay, well, hey, someone mentioned this. I remember hearing this from, even if it was someone in passing, they hear about something interesting, good, and yeah. Well,
one of the things that you asked me to talk about, or we decided to talk about today, was just the Southeast Asian foods that are around, especially in this corridor, like from Mungtown Market all the way up to the Midway.
Why don't we talk about that? Start talking about that.
Well, I just find it
now.
Fascinating because every time I drive down University, it feels like there's 2 or 3 more new
ones,
and I'm like, it's overwhelming. I want to get into all those, because sometimes it's, as you know, the ones that are kind of the greasy spoon looking places are the best
ones.
Yeah,
those are the best ones.
You have to just hope for the best, and you have to try everything. That's my thing about it. But I have a love of Southeast Asian and pretty much all Asian cuisine.
Yes.
And I've been able to travel to Thailand, and I've been to Hong Kong too. That's another whole food experience we could talk about sometime. But I've been to Thailand 3 times.
Right.
I've taken cooking classes each time I've gone. But then, as on the second and third time, I took very specified cooking classes.
I see.
And can I give my website?
You can.
Oh,
sure.
On my website, I was thinking about this. I have a blog. It's aarongabrielcomposer.com. And I have a blog, and there's recipes from Thailand on there if people are interested. They can go and check that out, and they can look at the blog, and there's tons of food pictures. I describe the food, and then there's even some really unique recipes if people want to try something new.
No, I'm quite sure they'll be very interested. I know that even the foods that you've cooked for us, some of them have been Asian. We have some mutual friends or friends that are Asian as well, and they've shown us and prepared, if you would, certain dishes that are just like, good Lord. Can I make this? Can you show me how to do this, please, so I can do it myself at home?
Well, that's why it was like 50 pounds of curry paste.
Boy. You're going to get in trouble one day.
It was, I almost had it confiscated, but
oh boy,
it's so worth it because you've had it.
Yes, it's delicious.
It's so worth it to bring back those unique packets of curry paste. And curry paste is something that if you can go places and get specified curry paste, I think sometimes people get intimidated by making a curry, and curry comes in so many different forms. And basically, it's kind of like, to me, there are specific curries that you can get like throughout the region in Thailand, and they have like their regionalism, like khao soi. I was going to say khao soi is the northern part of Thailand.
Yeah, you're going to have to educate me and everybody else. And we only have an hour because I know both of us could talk about food for quite a while, but just to briefly.
Well, let's start with what you wanted me to talk about, a restaurant that people can go to, and that I chose On's Thai, O-N''S,
right?
Because I felt like when I'm that to me tastes the most authentically like Thailand, and I'm not saying there's not another restaurant that
right,
equally,
exactly.
But when I'm there, and plus she has these sour pork sausages.
Oh, this is the place that we're. Oh,
yeah, and you can't, and she fries them perfectly, and they're just so fantastic, and you should really try them. It is fermented pork, and I know people sometimes think, "What? That doesn't really make sense to me."
It's delicious, though.
Yeah, it's so good, and but you should call ahead if you really want those, because she was just saying the other day, like, runs out. She made 100 sausages, and someone came and bought $100 worth.
Oh crap!
So they just go really fast. But you can call in and say, can you
reserve some?
we'll be in, or do you have them today? And they are sort of like this special sour, sweet, savory,
and the flavor of it is undeniable. I mean, you made some. Was it from her or
no?
Was it
I brought that back from Thailand.
So contraband.
Oh, you can bring it as long as it's wrapped properly, and you have to put it in you can't carry it on.
Oh,
the
it has
plane.
to be.
It has to be up.
You know what we're talking about. It has to be checked. Within how far over here in St. Paul have you been? I mean, in reference to
over the years. Oh my gosh, I wouldn't even. I mean,
well, food wise. So
yeah, I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
There's so many restaurants. I don't even. I think as far as Asian flavors go, the next one down the line I was going to tell you about Hoa Bien, which is Vietnamese.
Okay.
And then the Mong Town Market, which I adore that place.
Yes.
And if you can really have some extreme food experiences
and
there.
Hours of just walking around and doing some shopping and just going from it, like you said, restaurant to restaurant, or having one food experience to another. I mean, I walked around. It took maybe about, I don't know, hour and a half. I don't even think I covered everything, but it was just like I went to one place. I was like, that looks good. I went 50 feet. Oh my God, that looks good. What's that? So it's weird, but
it's kind of frustrating to go there because there's so many things you want to try. It's good to go there with a large group of people. I have found, like if you go with 5 or 6, you can get you can all just pick something different and kind of eat it buffets or like family style or however you want to community eating. Because you just get full, so it's like, oh, I didn't get to try that. But the things that are, and be ready, be ready for spice. If you like spice, they will go the full distance on spice.
Yeah.
So that excites me. Like
I can't remember, but is it Thai? With Thai, they do have levels of spice too. I mean,
everybody really has levels of spice. I hope.
Right.
I mean, yeah. But you just have to. I'm saying you can go to the full distance, which is what I prefer. So they will
I'll be sweating and everything with a rag and whatnot, but I'm still eating this food though.
It's like I would, I'm a level 5 spice person no matter what. And some people, because you're in the Midwest, they'll just assume that you couldn't possibly mean 5.
Oh Lord!
So they'll. And then I'm adding all the stuff from the side.
They're looking at you like, what is wrong with this
man?
But
the fun thing, if you can find them, they're there sometimes and they're not. They do these stuffed chicken thighs or stuffed chicken wings where they break the bone on the end, pull out all the meat and the bone and different things, and then take the meat off the bone and make a very small hole in the skin and leave the skin on this part of the bone, right?
Okay.
Then they mix the meat with rice noodles, different kaffir lime leaves, chilies, lemongrass, all these different Thai spices or Southeast Asian flavors, and then they stuff it back in the skin and then bake it like that.
Oh my goodness!
So what happens is obviously the fat from the skin seeps through all those and infuses all, and the flavors just kind of melt together. Now, there's a woman there that used to make these, and they were so good. And the other day I was there, and she's like, "I'm not making those anymore. They're too hard." Yeah. Because it's just one of those things where you can see the tedium in the food you're eating. This had to take a really long time.
And man,
and you can't rip the chicken skin. It can't. If you rip it, then it's not gonna. Unless you could sew it together, I suppose, or something. But it's a little weird. Anyways, that's one thing that if you get there early enough, and you should try those. There's another great part of one of my favorite things to have when I'm in Thailand is the different pork sausages that they have, because they put all those spices in them all the time, and you can find them everywhere. And they do have a lot of varieties of those sausages too. So there's in those sausages you'll find lemongrass, kaffir lime, chilies, all the different sort of things that make those bright, fun
and
Southeast Asian
flavors.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna ask, what is do you have a favorite I suppose Asian market that you go to or you shop at? Or?
Well, I think it won't. I mean, United Noodle is kind of United Noodle in Minneapolis is kind of it's dangerous because there is so much in there.
And they serve food.
And they have that great food court.
Yes.
And it's all of a sudden it's 3 hours later and you're like, how can I even still be here? But you start going through the pickled aisles of all the things in jars and you're like, what? Yum, I have to, And
then the entire wall back there of ramen and the different type of vermicelli noodles and so forth.
That place is, and it's right by Coastal Seafoods too.
See,
so
one after the other. I'm telling you, I wish that I could go and tour Coastal Seafoods. I know we're talking about Asian food right now, but I just they get seafoods and so forth, and I wish I could go there and just have some type of tour. Be like, can you just feed me while I'm standing here? Can you cook it? And anyway, but
I would love that. That would be interesting too. Yeah, I'm not. Sometimes one of the things I've also told you about is that if I have a fear of food or preparing food, I try to conquer that fear by just doing it.
Okay.
So for a long time, I was quite afraid of fish because it's so. I find it a little finicky. It's 1 minute on each side and that thing is done.
Oh, right.
And so you have to just be really ready to prepare the fish.
Right. That's interesting. I did you tell me that? I don't remember you telling me that.
Yeah. I mean, I had a fear of sushi making, and you had my friend Carly on the show a few weeks ago.
Yes.
And I said, she's like, that's an irrational fear, Aaron. You should not have a fear of sushi making. And then once you were there, when you make it, it's like, oh, this is like fun. I'm making my own flavor painting.
Exactly.
And you have a blank pad. You can add all the things you like into it.
Exactly.
And then it comes in this little cute roll, and you're like, sweet. This is perfect.
This is the Aaron roll.
Yeah. And we were putting pickled things in there. We were really having a good time.
Yeah. Is there a favorite food that you like? I mean, I know we already talking about Asian stuff, and I know that there are other things. I know, and I meant to ask you about it previously. we don't have to give it right now, but the cocoa vine recipe or
That's,
the preparation.
That's just straight up Julia Child.
Yeah.
That cocoa vine recipe is tried and true.
Yes.
It is, I'm a huge fan of Julia, and just that her attention to detail and the amount of test trials she did, just you'll find a lot of great recipes. But as far as Asian food goes, I'm a pho addict, as you know. I love pho.
Yes. Yes.
And
may I add, he pronounced that correctly. Not that I know the correct pronunciation, but I've been corrected many times. So yes, he has pronounced that correctly.
Yeah, my friends, I have several friends who are also pho addicts. And there's so many places.
Right.
A great place to get pho is Hua Bien, and they have a sweet and sour soup there that is shockingly good. I was kind of nervous I have the menu up. I'll just bring it up so I know exactly which one.
They're on University, aren't they?
Yep.
I can't remember what cross street that is, but it is. It's on University. It's in St. Paul. I'll let you keep looking for that. But in the meantime, there are a number of different Asian restaurants, and I know that I was talking to another friend or coworker, and she mentioned Bangkok. Is it Bangkok Thai?
And that's one of the ones I have not been to yet. I will be looking forward to going to that.
Yeah, she recommended it, and many times I've driven past it. I've always talked about it too and said it. You drive past some place and you see it, and it's either busy or not, and I'm just thinking, oh crap, it's too busy. I can't go right now. I'm headed to a specific destination, but I look in there and it's full. And to me that tells me that this place is really great. It's always constantly busy. I never see it, oh wow, it doesn't even look busy in here. There's hardly any cars in this parking lot, or the restaurant looks empty. No, this place is constantly busy, and their clientele, to me, tells me that this is very authentic.
Well, that's the true test. If you see people from that particular culture in that restaurant,
that's how I feel.
You should. That's a good. Everyone knows that. That's not an elephant in the room. That's just like you. People also go and look for that. Do you know what I mean? So, I was going to say that soup is called hot and sour soup with catfish.
Man.
Yeah, and I think I avoided that because I'm not a crazy huge pineapple fan.
Okay.
I find it cloyingly sweet. It's just too sweet. But that has it's just so good.
And that has catfish in it too.
Catfish or prawns,
all right,
depending.
Well, I'd say I'd like both. Believe me, but I'd like to taste the catfish. The prawns sound good too, but I wonder if they would do both. Maybe
I'm
probably
sure.
Extra. Just mix
the other
it in.
thing is, the one thing that people don't often do is you can ask people if they have specialties that aren't on the menu.
Oh.
And especially if you get to know a restaurant
Right.
owner, you can say, what's your favorite thing and can you make it? Especially if it's a slower day.
Right.
You never know what you're going to get. And I've done that several times, and that's part of being in the food adventure. And sometimes people, when you go to a place frequently enough,
Right.
will get to know you a little bit and will be like, hey, do you want to try? We have this today. That's the moment you've made it.
I'm not there yet. I'm only helping out, bringing attention to restaurants that are in the area. But I'm always looking for some type of food journey or adventure, and not just any type of benefit. It's just I have an interest in food, and I really like to try different things. So this is a point to you. Please, if you're on a food adventure sometime, please let me know.
Well, we're going to go to Untitled today.
Yay.
That's because you haven't been there yet.
No, I have not.
And so that's something that has to happen. But also we should get a group and go to the Mungtown Market, because it's just more fun that way.
With more people.
Yeah, and I was going to say another thing about there is they do have some things that are real specialties, like stuffed pig uterus. I know that sounds like what?
I know my eyebrows did go up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it sounds, but I think everyone should try those things, because there is some really unique umami flavors, like that earth flavor in that. And also the sauce that the two people I've had, I'm sure there might be more than just two people who make that there.
Right.
But they have this crazy Thai salsa that is quite hot. But that stuff,
I'm trying anything once at least. Even if
you don't know if that flavor could really, if you like potatoes, mushrooms,
yes.
things like that, that's like kind of a bumped up potato or mushroom.
Okay.
It's got that same sort of texture, that flavor. It feels real earthy, and I think it looks really good
pleasing.
too. But you could also be like, no way. So it all depends. I find some of those kinds of things look really good to eat.
Well, that's good because I'm excited, and it is like you said, always about a food experience or a food adventure. So that's why this show is called the Un-Bougie Foodie. We're not picky about, oh my goodness, it has to be a certain type of way or something like that.
Well,
yes, but to an extent.
But I grew up where it was really, what is it, toe to tail or nose to tail
or snout to tail, like I talked about last
like
week.
The feet, the offal.
See, this is what I'm talking about, being un-bougie. And un-bougie in the sense, too, of food like that. I know that there are some that are kind of skeptical because I don't know about that. I can't do that. But when you grew up in a culture, yourself and myself included, where I didn't know what it was. Snout to tail. And then I come over to the Midwest many years later, of course, and find out that that's what it's called. I'm like, we've been doing this from the time that I was like 8 or 9 or something like that. My parents have been cooking everything, every part of the animal, if you would, and using, interesting parts that they probably haven't even told us. So if you're listening out there, mommy, daddy, I know your secret now.
Well, I think it had to do with practicality. Those kinds of things aren't, like certain things people can make. People are so resourceful when it comes to food. Like they can take a pig snout and turn it into something totally
a delicacy,
amazing.
A delicacy,
and that's the beauty of it because then there's no waste.
Exactly.
And my parents came from Depression era parents, and 2 things are included in that: you use every part of the animal, and also you cook it within an inch of its life. So there's that
broth and
it's
everything.
like you want to make sure everything's really cooked through.
Yes.
So it wasn't until later in my life that I realized like how great I like raw meats and raw foods, like raw fish, raw beef.
Right.
Famous for, one of my favorite things when I go to Thailand is this form of lob that is raw pork, and you have to kind of go into the country and have somebody specifically make it for you.
Okay.
But I just love it. And it's in its own blood.
How is that spelled? Or
I think it's
L-A-A-B or...
Well, there's something. So it's a different alphabet, right?
Okay. Yes.
So they're kind of doing a phonetic spelling of it.
See.
So sometimes you're going to see L-A-A-R-B.
Okay.
L-A-R-B, L-A-A-B.
Because those
and I
spices
do think there's a difference from what I can tell when I was with my friends, because this is a question I've asked many times.
Okay.
Sometimes when you have that ground pork and you wrap it in the... Have you had lob before?
Yes.
So it's like ground pork cooked.
Yep.
And then I think that recipe's on my website from my friend's grandma who gives me cooking lessons. My friend's mom. Usually it's that ground pork with some onions or some different things in it, and you wrap it in lettuce leaves and eat it.
Yep.
There's other forms of that too, and one that I love is that it's raw pork.
Okay.
That's prepared with congealed pig's blood.
Okay.
And I know this probably sounds to many people like, what on earth
are you talking about on this
but
show?
I could eat it like, they serve everything with rice, and I could eat that without anything. I could just spoon it up and just keep eating it. The flavor is so sensational.
I could only imagine, because I know that a young lady at work, she made it with chicken and pork for us and just chopped this thing so fine. I was like, this thing has been pulverized, but it was delicious. And the seasonings and cilantro and other flavors or seasonings and so forth that were used within it. Like you said, very simple. Here's, lettuce, and you use it as a wrap, and place this wonderful dish on it and just eat it. And people weren't eating it. They weren't eating it enough. So I was... Except for me. I'm like, what is this? You have to tell me what it is.
So, we also have fears of raw foods in this country because of trichinosis and things.
Yes.
And you always take a risk when
Of
you're doing that
course.
stuff. We also have a big thing. There's a lot more use of congealed blood in Southeast Asian culture. And I find that to be, if you can take that risk and you can get over that thing, that, they don't have any fear of it. It adds this incredible richness to everything. Like if you put it in the pho and let it kind of work its way through the soup, it's just amazing what it does for the flavor.
Have you made pho at home? I mean,
No, actually, my friend Kevin and his partner Heather are going to make us pho. He's been working on it for tonight.
really?
So I've never made it at home because
Wow.
that's a 2-day process or 3, depending.
I'm jealous.
I would. Well, I said I could bring friends, so you might be coming with us.
No. I don't know. What time is that?
No, I mean, that's part of also when you have such a passion for food and flavor, you tend to, like you and me, kind of,
Build relationships with
Yeah.
people that like to cook.
you're just drawn together.
Yes.
And so, I think, does that give you a good sense of some of the...
No, it really does. And so I really appreciate, you being here and giving us that information or giving your own viewpoint on those. I hope you're going to stay with me for the rest of the hour and, talk about a few things. I might get your opinions on a few things. And, I would like to ask, I know you've said already some interesting things, or interesting dishes that you've had, but have you gone to a international country that, not that you were hesitant, but you were like, okay, you pause for a moment and then you're like, okay, I'm going to do this.
We went to a New Year's festival in the mountains in Thailand, and here's another blood story. So for New Year's they butcher the pig right there, which I wasn't quite ready for because I was standing right next to it.
Oh boy.
So there was so much going on, and it was just a lot happening. All this, it was overwhelming,
Okay.
to say the least. And all of a sudden, this pig is like done. So you're like, okay, well, this is a part of someone else's custom.
Culture.
I just have to, win in
Rome.
Thailand. And so the one thing that I found so fascinating is that they have this spice there that's a smoked chili flakes,
Okay.
basically, that is very good. I think I've given you some. I think because I brought like a big bag home with me. I'll give you some if I haven't.
Okay.
It's the one thing you cannot do is put that in a skillet with oil, because you will pepper spray your house.
Ooh.
And it's happened to me like 3 times now. You can't even open the windows and get it out. It just...
Really?
So you have to add it later.
Oh, okay.
It's so interesting. I don't know what it is about the connection with that and oil on a skillet.
Wow.
But you will not be able to breathe.
Oh, wow.
It's funny. Anyways, so, and if it's the winter time, you don't want to have to go outside and stand outside while you're
Nope. Don't want to do that.
But they killed the pig, and then they cut some of the pork belly up into these very small bits, and they just put it in the blood that was there, and then they put this pre-clop on top of it. And I was a little bit like, this seems to go against what I should do. This does not seem like something that, as far as like whatever thoughts you have from growing up in the United
Exactly.
States with, you can never, you have to, your pork has to be cooked all the way
Exactly.
through, no questions asked. That has changed now. You can actually even get medium rare or rare pork on the menu, if you've noticed.
Some of these charcuteries and places and so forth, have, an entire plate of the different types that you could actually have. So go ahead.
But you can go to a restaurant now and have like a pork steak, and they'll ask you how you want it prepared, which never used to happen.
Okay.
But anyways, they just served that with that pre-glob, and it was so good. I wanted more, and it's a celebration, and like, so you don't ask things like that. But I was like, I couldn't believe it was shockingly good.
Wow.
And part of it is that from what I know, a lot of cultures have a sort of heat component to their diets that kill a lot of the germs, like wasabi, obviously chilies, different things like that can sometimes counteract some of that bacteria. So that's why there was that dusting of that very hot
No, that makes sense.
And it's roasted or smoked. I don't know exactly. I don't know the process behind pre-club because I wasn't there for the making of it. We just got some because it's so great.
Is that also how why they also serve ginger too? Because ginger is supposed to have, especially
There's
when you're having
horseradish.
Yes.
There's a whole bunch of different things that have these.
You know, like with sushi. You know, so many folks are. I'm not eating that because I don't know what kind of. But you know, the other things that are served with it, you know, like the wasabi, ginger, and so forth. Those, you know, like you talked about a moment ago, they do help with. You know, eliminating or cutting those bacteria and so forth that would be harmful anyway.
Yep. And I'm not an expert on that, but that's what I've learned over time, and that's what I've read about it a little bit. But it's every culture has that, even if it's in the mythology of it, it has to do. And when you go to where I was in India, where there's this Ayurvedic tradition. The food is adjusted to your body based on how you're doing. So, like, yeah, if you're pregnant, they take the spice down and amp up, like, the cinnamon and different things. There's a whole system.
Wow.
That's so fascinating. Talk about you could spend a lifetime just figuring that stuff out.
And talking about it within an hour is that's an entire hour gone right there on that one subject.
But I love that. There was such an interesting... The way people balanced foods, particularly, like, you know, certain cultures have, like, really progressed their food. And there's always this sense of, like, how do you get all the flavors in there? Bitter, sweet, savory, you know.
To have that full round.
Yeah, and so you'll see in some cultures, it, like, pushing really far. I don't think it's as clear as you have, like, what you have in Louisiana, where all those cultures came together, and you get this, like, Creole and... basically a new French cuisine that has world cultures in it. It's just so, when you're down there, the flavors are just so intense.
See, now, admittedly, I haven't gone
there. We're taking that trip.
Yeah. I mean, my experience was one when I was 10 or something. But that wasn't even so much, you know, anything that I don't know. I can remember it, other than the fact that I was 10. We went down there. That was it, and we really didn't even have a good Louisiana experience per se. It was for something else, but it was just no. I don't remember Louisiana other than having food.
First, it's really helpful to have friends there because that's another one of those places where some of the best food you're going to get is some shack in the bayou or something like.
And I love that, like etouffee.
I love etouffee. That's one of my favorite things to eat. I could eat that every day, but no, I shouldn't.
Yeah.
It's very rich. It's a very rich food.
Very.
But if you know people, that's when you're going to get the best find the best po' boys and in different varieties. Honestly, though, one of the best po' boys I had there was at Whole Foods, and it was a fried green tomato po' boy.
While you were in Louisiana?
Yeah, there was a Whole Foods in New Orleans, and it was. For that, I think it was just one of those situations. Because I've been back to that Whole Foods since then. Right. They've never had that on the menu again.
Oh, wow, okay.
It had fried whole crab and fried green tomatoes.
Oh, see, the whole crab right there has got me. So
you know those little baby crab?
Yes.
So it was just amazing, but they've never had it on the menu again. I mean, I would not necessarily go to Louisiana to go to Whole Foods to have a po' boy.
Better not. That's why I questioned it. I was like, what? Anyway. But, you know, thanks again for, you know, all that information. And I look forward to having a number of my guests, such as yourself, back. And we could talk about other subjects, too, especially about more with other restaurants over in the East St. Paul area. I want to thank everybody out there again for listening to the Un-Bougie Foodie. Please make sure that you're tuning into, you know, your newest St. Paul radio station, which is WEQY, on 104.7. If you're unable to hear us locally, make sure that you're listening or streaming to the show live, and not only mine, but other shows live on the TuneIn app. That's something that you could download, and just simply look for WEQY. Search for WEQY, and, you know, hey, listen in. If you have any questions about the Un-Bougie Foodie or the topics that we've talked about thus far, and maybe want to find out some other additional information that Aaron had mentioned about restaurants within either St. Paul, especially on University. Yeah, there's a whole lot. And then, of course, over in Minneapolis as well. Feel free to get in contact with me at the Un-Bougie Foodie at gmail.com. You could actually tweet me as well at the_Un-Bougie Foodie. And then Instagram, of course, at Un-Bougie Foodie. You'll see photos of places that I've gone to, and again, these are just ways for me to keep in contact with you as my listeners, and for you to also be engaged with the show and getting an idea of the different types of foods that are in your local area. So please definitely tune in and ask questions if necessary. I would like to talk. Just about every week, I think I've talked about maybe lunch and dinner and so forth, but breakfast foods. I went to a place recently, last week specifically, and I know of small breakfast places or American places that are serving American dishes for breakfast and whatnot, but for some reason this went under my radar, and I want to bring it out. It is called Magnolias. They are located on 1081 Payne Avenue, which is right in the neighborhood. Again, they like I mentioned, they serve casual American food. Breakfast specifically was what I went there for, and they have a wide variety of things. I mean, omelets and French toast and ranch style breakfasts, but they have great full-on menu for lunch as well as for dinner. They have specials like fish fries and wings. Although it's a small, intimate place, and I don't mean small in the bad way at all. Intimate is much more of a better term, but you could see that this is definitely a neighborhood restaurant where people are coming together, and even if it's just to have some coffee or to come in and say hi to one another. I thought that was really interesting when I was there last week. But Aaron, what about you? Do you have any place? Again, it doesn't have to be here in St. Paul, because we are about definitely focusing on East St. Paul and St. Paul and the neighboring areas. Anything that you could probably recommend at the top of your head for like a breakfast place? Or I know that we went to that brunch over on, what was it, North Woods? Was it North Woods? Or remember we had that burrito?
Oh, the Northbound Brew Pub.
Pub.
They have a good breakfast burrito at that place.
Right. So go ahead, tell me your place.
I think for me, there's something really nostalgic, and part of food is nostalgia too. But there's something really nostalgic about Keys, the original Keys.
Yes.
And when I have friends from out of town, from like Europe and different places from around the world, they always request to go there. There's something very special. It's completely American.
Wow. Okay.
The portions obviously are like the size of they can't even fit the dishes on the little table, and it's just kind of a fun experience. And actually, I think they've got their flavors down there. They know what they're doing, and they've got some really fun, unique things on their menu that are. I think that people should try that Loon Omelette that has wild rice in it.
A Loon Omelette?
It's called the Loon Omelette.
Okay.
It's just Minnesotan flavors.
Okay.
Sausage.
I was like, wait a minute now.
It's got like a wild rice gravy that goes over the top of it. I think that's one of their more fun, interesting, hearty dishes, and really uses wild rice well. I love wild rice, so
that's interesting. That's cool. Have I ever had an omelet like that? I don't think. I think the most interesting dish that I've had with wild rice, of course, the State Fair, but it was a farmer's market that they were serving over by where I am, by where I work, a brat with wild rice. And just very, very interesting flavor. And I think I'll say for folks back home or on the West Coast, they're probably thinking, wild rice, why would you in a meat brat or something like that? That doesn't make any sense. Well, you have these big grains of rice or something. No, it's not like that. But anyway, thank you for that suggestion, or at least telling us that one that you have in mind. There was another one that I wanted to mention that is, again, specifically on the east side. This one is Ward 6. They also have American Fare. They are located at 858 Payne Avenue. And they have a wonderful brunch that is available. And it kind of breaks out, too, from, I believe it's from, it starts at 10. Well, I'm saying brunch because I'm thinking Sunday or whatever, or Saturday. And it starts from like 10 to about 2. And then it kind of breaks off into, and it's like a half an hour or something like that, where they kind of clear the tables and so forth. And then they do like another one at a later time. And the food is awesome. I went there and had an omelet a couple of weeks ago, and I enjoyed myself. I know the friends that they were there, they had probably, was it Eggs Benedicts or something? And they seemed to enjoy it, but again, going to these different places, when you mentioned going to the Hmong market, that it's best to go with friends so that you could taste, and do family style tasting and so forth. I have to keep that in mind. I can't keep going to these places maybe with myself or one other individual. I mean, I can, and we could order these big dishes, but I don't like to waste food, so I feel I have to eat it.
Is sometimes a little difficult to do seconds on because it kind of like deflates.
No, well, yeah,
and like you can try it back in the oven, but
you're like, oh dang, yeah, this doesn't taste the same way that it used to, or that should when I first had it at the restaurant or something. So those are just some suggestions on food spots. I will be providing you with more food spots, breakfast places, I should say, on upcoming shows as well. So feel free to reach out if you have maybe your favorite breakfast spot or brunch spot that you'd like to have showcased, or I might be able to get a chance to visit. Maybe take a few of my foodie friends along with me. Aaron, come along. Cecil, I hear you out there. What I wanted to, I have to ask you, do you know any friends that have like allergies, like to gluten and so forth, or whatnot? Or
I mean, that's an interesting. Gluten allergies, they're just discovering so much about what they actually are and what they contain in whose bodies and what types of flour.
Exactly.
I don't know how my body handles that necessarily, but I've had several friends and colleagues, lovers of food, not have the same problem when they were in Europe with the flour because it's a little bit different, and so it could be something having to do specifically with that flour. Who knows? I think that there's a lot of information coming out about gluten, but I do have several friends, and especially younger people with children that don't have gluten in their diets, or very little.
Right. And, I don't have many either. I know I have a very close friend at work, and she has gluten allergies. And I was shopping one day, and I saw some information that I know you could go online and look up things, but it was something that was just, it captured my attention at the moment because it had some recipes, and then talked about if you're gluten-free, here's something to consider, or some things to consider. So I just kind of wanted to touch on that. Like I mentioned, there are friends out there or individuals that are listening that have an allergy or to gluten. So I wanted to just briefly talk about maybe some gluten-free, what gluten is, and some options that you have. There are a number of different types of selections that you could make that you won't have to suffer with those gluten from those gluten allergies or the effects of gluten allergies. First off, when gluten is the name for certain proteins that are found in grains such as wheat, rye, barley, and for persons that have gluten sensitivity, most often they are referred to as celiacs, or individuals with celiac disease. Eating foods that have gluten are considered very harmful. They cause digestive problems and actually damage the lining of your small intestines. So anytime that occurs, it when that your intestines are damaged, they can't absorb the nutrients and that are necessary to to fuel the body and keep yourself in a healthy condition. So it makes it difficult for persons that have celiac disease or have gluten-free allergies to get those nutrients needed for any type of good health. You could find gluten in a number of things. We already talked about barley and even flour, but it could be in beverages, beer, milk, malted drinks, some cereals. So pay attention to what is on the labels of packaging and cereals and items that you're buying at the grocery store. You're probably wondering, well, what are the different types of alternatives that are available? You could use beans and legumes, corn, potatoes, flaxseed. There's an entire list that you can, or a number of different products and items that you could use and utilize to make sure that you stay in good health and avoid those gluten allergies.
And most of them have flours too.
Yes, exactly.
That come with them if you want to try different kinds of flours.
That's true. That's a very good point.
Flour. Like you could have just a bouquet of flowers.
No. But no, thank you for that. I appreciate that. When it comes to selecting type of foods, there are naturally gluten-free foods that you can select from, and we talk about produce. I always talk about supporting your farmers markets in the local area. You could definitely make sure to check out meats, poultry, eggs, fish. These are all the foundations of the diets that you really want to have, and make sure that you are staying gluten-free. If you would like some additional information about gluten-free, and I know we've only talked about that very briefly on the subject, I would love to talk about more. I'm learning more about that myself. So I don't know everything, and I'm not a nutritionist or dietitian or anything of that nature. But again, this is a food show, and for those that are interested in having the opportunity to go out and they might suffer from an allergy and so forth, I want to try my best to offer some type of options of places and be conscious and aware that there are friends that are listening that have these allergies or a sensitivity to glutens or other ingredients. So as I was mentioning, if you want to find out some other information about it, and I will be educating myself as well, it is a resource called celiac.com, and that is CELIAC.com. There is also the Celiac Disease Foundation. Again, the same way that it's spelled, www.celiac.org. They can provide information as well. And there are other organizations as well that give you, can educate you and will provide different options for you to try. There are recipes that are also available. Magazines too are also can be found at your local grocery store. I know where I found some of this information was at Kowalski's. I just happened to be in there doing some shopping and so forth. But specifically, glutenfreeliving.com. That's for a magazine specifically for people that have celiac disease and that have gluten intolerance. So again, you have options. If you want to find out more information about any of these, and you'd like me to send you some additional information, please again contact me at the Un-Bougie Foodie at gmail.com, and I'll be more than happy to get that out to you. We're coming to the end of our show. Aaron, I want to thank you so much for being here. I appreciate having you as my guest. I hope we get a chance to do this again. Again, as I mentioned, I am going to be having more guests and even repeat guests, so we can talk about different things, because one person has a lot of opinions about different types of foods in different areas. We were just talking about Asian because I know that you've been the international traveler. So any last words?
I just want to say thank you for having me. This is really fun. I'll always talk about food because it's such a passion of mine, and I'm so lucky that I've been able to go and travel like that. And I would really encourage people, if they do travel, to take a food class. There's so many opportunities for it.
Right.
And that can lead to a lot of really fun experiences, and just to learn how some of the different components work, like rice paper or something like that.
Cool.
I think that's just fun for people, and they should give it a whirl. Thanks
so much again. Once again, I want to thank everyone, all my listeners out there, those that are tuning in to WEQY 104.7, the voice of the East Side. As always, listen every weekend to the Un-Bougie Foodie, and keep in mind, always, never let anyone tell you what type of foodie you are, because really it is all about the food. Thanks so much, and peace.